am your girl, Maddie, and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be talking about capitalism and why it sucks. Alright, so I'm just going to jump right in, but before I do that, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. If you have not already, please make sure to follow me on all my social medias, which is Maddie Speaks, down below in the descriptions as well. You can find all of those handles. And let's get right into the video of why capitalism sucks. But first, let's define capitalism. So capitalism is Capitalism is defined as an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit. So the free market, essentially the free market alone controls the production of goods and services. That is essentially what the capitalist system is. It was not the first kind of free markets. It was not the first political and economic system that was created. There was feudalism. There were many things before it, but we are now in capitalism, right? That's what we've been in for the last, I don't know how many years, Jesus. I would have to go research that part, but it's the market that we're in at this moment. And I just want to jump right in and talk about the issues with capitalism. So one of the first issues that you find with capitalism is that it creates a large, right, wealth disparity gap. And what I mean is, like, think about it. We have Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, right? And Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk were like going back and forth between the richest man in the world during the pandemic, right? Who was like over $1 billion, crazy. Bill Gates, for the longest time, we knew as the richest man in the world. We have people like Warren Buffett, right? People who have an immense amount of wealth. And there's a problem when there are people who have an immense amount of wealth like that, and then there are also people at the very drastic end of the scale who have nothing, who are in homelessness, right? Who don't even have homes to go to. They have to live in the streets. They're living in their cars because they can't afford to live in homes, right? And because capitalism is a very sucky system, there are lots of things in play, right? But like, it's a problem when people can't even afford to live in a house, right? Bare necessities. And we're not talking about like they're not working jobs. There are people who are working jobs 40 hours a week, going to work, and they can't afford it, right? You have to choose between eating and paying rent. Who chooses between eating and paying rent? Like, I need both to survive. Right, I need heat to survive, but I'm paying. I have to choose between which one I have to make do with. Right, it's a full circle thing. And majority of us, right, and when I say majority, I'ma say it. 99.999% of us are closer to homelessness than we are to wealth. And we, for some reason, and I say we, I just do mean the collective, I know not everybody sits within this, align ourselves with this capitalist society because we have the mindset and we think like, one day I may be able to reach, okay? One day I'm going to be able to attain this level of wealth because I am an exception, right? I'm an exception. I'm going to obtain this level of wealth, so I must align myself with this party, these people, their frame of thinking. But look at where you are now, right? In this moment, those policies, those frames of thoughts don't help you when you are closer to being homeless on the streets than you are to being wealthy like Jeff Bezos. It doesn't align itself. And that also leads to social issues that are happening, right? It lacks itself into a lot of social inequalities, and it also leads into social inequalities, right? And that's one of the parts about capitalism that sucks, that immense wealth disparity, right? That wealth gap that we have, and the social inequalities that come with that as well, that people are fighting. And when I say the social inequalities, I mean there are workers right now who are fighting, right? And actually a lot of us, we if you haven't seen it, I don't know where you're hiding, but a lot of like the conversations that are happening on the web, on the internet, has been about the fight for 15, right? Making that the federal minimum wage of $15. And even that's not enough, right? Because we are now at the point where like $15 is not enough as the bare minimum wage for people doing these jobs, talking about the restaurant workers, and there's a bill that they're fighting to be signed, right, that will remove like the barment in which restaurants will pay workers, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, like they pay them a lower amount because they're going to get tipped, and that should balance it out. And it shouldn't be that other people, right, patrons of the restaurants are responsible for ensuring that these workers are able to pay their rent, right, to be able to feed themselves. That's not the responsibility of the patron. It should be the responsibility of the owner, right? You wanted to own this establishment, you wanted to have people taste your cuisine and be in here enjoying this environment. Oh, great, you're pulling people in, but you're not paying these workers this equitable wage, right? People are fighting for these places to give them sick time, so that when they are sick, they do not come to work. They don't have to come to work. But a lot of people in a lot of places, they don't get sick time. They don't get annual leave, right? Like if they are sick, they have to go to work, or they don't get paid. And if they don't get paid, the bills don't get paid in their house. And then what happens? They're in the street. Do you see that cycle? That's not okay. That's not healthy. But because these corporations and these businesses care more about the bottom line, the dollar, increasing profits, they will steamroll over you to make that happen any which way. They fire people for not coming into work because you were sick, because you had a family emergency you had to handle. That means nothing. You have to go to work. You have to go to work. You have to handle these things. And that's not okay, right? We see places like Amazon, for example, Starbucks, where people are fighting for unions, right? And you can disagree whether you are pro-union or against union, whatever it is. I will say unions have done a lot in this country for, if we're talking about the benefits that we receive on a normal day-to-day in some of these other fields. Unions help to create that, right? So you can say what you want about that aspect, but you know, they're fighting for unions because they've been so exploited and marginalized by these corporations in their search of wealth, right? In the pursuit of capitalism and packing their bottom line, increasing their revenue, that it's also been steamrolling over the people that work there, right? There are reports for Amazon that they're not going to be able to hire more people, right? They're not going to be able to get more, not hire more people, let me clarify. They're not going to be able to get new people in, because they've recycled through how many people have worked, you know, that have worked here, that have been fired, potentially quit because of the treatment, because it feels like, yo, y'all are doing the bare minimum when it comes to these labor laws and how y'all operate. And I don't want to work for this, right? Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to risk myself, my health, my safety for this. That says a lot, right? People are having to choose between their own well-being and making money. And it should be, if I catch a cold, I should be able to stay home, not potentially infect other people, get well, and then go back to work. That should be a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, that makes the most sense. I'm just saying, like, who would think that would make the most sense? But that's what happens. Capitalism also leads to overconsumption. We are seeing that if we are and that's, I think, the beauty of also of the age of social media, is we are seeing that level of overconsumption that is happening, and we are seeing how it impacts us in other ways, when it comes to plastic, when it comes to fashion, right? These landfills are filled with like clothing from companies like Boohoo, Fashion Nova. What's the next one? What's the next one? I don't shop at these places anymore, so I can't really remember their names. Right? Even H&M, Zara, they are producers of fashion. I mean, Forever 21, they are producers of fast fashion. But there's some of these new ones, Pretty Little Things. There we go. Pretty Little Things, Boohoo, are the top producers of fast fashion right now. And a lot of what we're showing on the internet when it comes to capitalism pushes that. Right? Pushes that overconsumption. It's not about quality goods anymore. It's about how much. Right? And to a certain extent, it's about how can we increase our revenue. That means clothing with less quality, right? Not as good garments, because if the garments aren't as good, they don't last as long. People aren't people are not going to buy as much. Does that make sense? If you have a lower quality shirt, I wash this one, it has a hole in it, it's ripped, I can go back and buy more now. Right? But if it's a higher quality, I'm good with this shirt. This shirt could last me 15, 20 years, right? See a lot of people thrifting and finding things from back in the day when quality was a lot better, when, you know, you're using genuine fabrics and stuff. Like, it's a circle, and when you look at it, it touches so many things that are happening that we are seeing as issues within our society nowadays, right? Capitalism is what's causing these, right? It's the root of the issue, if we're talking about it for real. The third thing that's really wrong with capitalism, is that the third thing? I feel like, yeah, maybe it's the third thing, who knows? It allows us to be abused, right? And I say this because I'm going to use an example, but how I feel capitalism does allow us to get abused. We talked about how workers are fighting for better conditions, all of this, but it also puts the mindset into people, right, like of hustle culture. You just have to hustle harder, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? Like, that's the phrase, that's the saying, that's what people say, and it allows you to be put in positions that you're abused because I need to hustle harder. One day I'll be able to, if I work hard enough, I'll be able to reach that immense amount of wealth. I'm just not working hard enough. That's why I can't reach that wealth, although people are working to their jobs. Right? Not that capitalism sucks and they're making so these things are unattainable. No. You're just not working hard enough. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, but Glorilla, she posted a ad request, job posting, I don't know what you want to call it, on social media looking for an assistant, and she said that she would pay them $5.50 a week. But the list of what she was asking for, right, the requirements were extensive. Okay, it was the requirements of people who were skilled in those areas. And if I am skilled in those areas, you are not paying me $5.50 measly dollars a week. These are also not simple 40 hours, because she's looking for a personal assistant. At that point, right, if we're talking about what it means to be a personal assistant, the reason you have to compensate me so well is because I'm supposed to be available to you at all hours and all times of the day, night, atmosphere, movement. You say jump, I'm supposed to be able to say how high. Like, shit like that is what's supposed to happen. And you've been paying me $550 a week. They are, you know, one of the things she said and was, you know, like, I'm paying for your flights, and, you know, how you expect me to pay you more, and I'm paying for your flights, because if that's the case, then you gotta pay for your flights. No, I've never been at a job where I'm required to travel and I pay for my own. No, because if I do that, guess what happens? If by chance I happen to have paid for my own flight, I send that to my company and they reimburse me because I traveled for a business reason. This was not my personal travel. So that's not a justification, right? And like, and Glorilla, unfortunately, she's coming from the point where she was once exploited. Right, she was once exploited, she was once part of the system, but because she's made it, and I air quotes I made it, because Glorilla is still a very new artist, and I feel like there's very much a chance she's being bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray, and taken advantage of behind the scenes, but we don't know that, and we may not know that until 10, 15, 20 years on the line, like a lot of these other artists. But when she's having this conversation, she's speaking of it from somebody who was once taken advantage of, right? So she doesn't see the problem with that system. So this is what I mean when it says it allows us to be abused and then abuse other people once we sort of kind of made it, right? Because she didn't really make it, sort of kind of made it out. Now we're just perpetuating the cycle. And we're saying, right, and people are responding in the true manner of hustle culture. Oh, that's enough to survive. Barely survive. It's enough to barely survive, right? So you're making $550 a week. Hold on, let me get my calculator out because I just want to do the math with y'all real quick. Right? Because she said $550 a week times 4 weeks, you'll make $2,200. Let's say Uncle Sam, because you are so dead broke, only takes out $500 from you, and then you have $1,700 left. You have to pay bills on $1,700. You have to pay rent on $1,700. Hopefully, you do not have any sort of emergency, right? So you can save a little bit of that money. You gotta buy groceries, and we know how much groceries is outside. This shit is expensive. Where is this money going? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, where's this money going? You are barely surviving. This is a hand to mouth kind of situation. You are just making it through. You are just making it to the next day. You're just making it to the next paycheck. And people are trying to justify this kind of living. It is not okay. That is not how somebody should ever live. It's not how you should want people to live. And that's the problem with capitalism. It's because people justify it. You just need to work harder. You need to hustle. She'll give you connections. She'll lead you in the door. Well, really not to be offensive, baby, but again, like I said, she just got in the door. She don't know nobody her damn self. She's getting herself. And that's also not what a personal assistant is. A personal assistant, like, that's not why you take these jobs. It's to get put on. You have to survive. You have to live. And I'm not going to be able to do that for $550 a week. $2,000. Listen, let's also imagine Uncle Sam took nothing out of that. $2,200. Do you think that's still enough to survive a month? I don't care if you're saying people do it. Don't justify the poor behavior. But it's not okay, right? It's not what people, like, people are struggling in this amount. There are people who tell us all the time how they're struggling, where they get emergencies, and this is how they end up destitute. You ask people, how do they end up in a shelter? I had an emergency, and I had to use the money, the little bit of money I had. Couldn't pay my rent. I was 4 days past due. I told my landlord, they didn't care, they kicked me out. Right? Like, we're not a community that cares in capitalism. People don't care. They care about their bottom dollar. They care about the revenue, the income. So as a whole, it perpetuates a certain level of abuse. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care that you're not feeling well. It doesn't care that you need to call out because your kid is sick. These jobs, these places, they don't care. So I don't feel bad for these corporations and these businesses because they can afford to do it. Even when we talk about groceries and how much they cost, these companies are still making millions and billions of dollars through this. They just increased how much these items cost. They're still making money, but we're the ones who are suffering on the other side. But that's what I have to say when it comes to the topic of capitalism and why I truly believe that it sucks. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of capitalism. Do you think it's I don't even know if it's a good or bad system, right? I think it's bad. But it has very poor parts of capitalism. Let me know what you think. Please leave your comments down below. I would love to have a conversation, discussion. All I ask is you are not rude. Don't lose your damn mind because I don't agree with you, and we can have the conversation and dispute. As I said before, please make sure to like, subscribe, share it to your auntie, sister, cousin, best friend. Let them know that I am her. I made a cute little video and that you should come and watch it. And follow me on all my social medias down below. I will see you on the next one.